All right, everybody, welcome back. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we've got another position to cover in the NFL free agency period that will be starting in about a week and a half. And this position is going to be pretty easy and quick for us to talk about. We're going to be doing center. Before we get into the center position, though, I want to let people know that I will be streaming with the Hawks Nest later today. Should be going live in a few hours from the upload of this video. Going to go live at noon. Going to have a conversation with him about free agency stuff. And we'll see where we end up finding common ground, where we end up disagreeing a little bit on stuff. Just trying to prepare the viewers for the upcoming NFL free agency that starts, like I said, in about a week and a half, get a feel for who the team should be targeting, get a feel for who the team maybe should not be targeting. You guys know the drill, but definitely check that show out. Goes live in a few hours. All right, everybody, before we go any further into this video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about the Sleeper app and some new functionality they've recently rolled out, Team Picks. With Team Picks, you can pick winners in all kinds of sporting events. Right now, we have NBA basketball, college basketball, NHL hockey is going on, baseball's going to start in a little more than a month, and of course, you have futures in the NFL, even though the games in the NFL are over. Right now, if you look to my left here, you can actually see you can bet on next year's Super Bowl winner. They've got the Seahawks leading the way in those odds, by the way, at 12%. How does that make you feel as a Seahawks fan? But you can bet on MVP, you can bet on draft picks, you can bet on player destinations, all kinds of fun stuff, even though the season is over. So that is Team Picks over on Sleeper. A lot of fun stuff you can do. All right, so center, that's a position where I feel like things are relatively straightforward. The Seahawks do not need a decent center because they already have one with Jalen Sundell, and they do not need a depth center because they already have one in Olu Oluwatimi. Both those guys are very cheaply priced right now. So if they need a center, and I don't know if they do or not, but if they do, the only thing that they need is a very, very good one. Somebody that would be a clear upgrade over Jalen Sundell. And they're not going to find that guy in the bargain bin in all likelihood. They're not going to find that guy in some obscure corner of the free agency market. They need to look at the top guys and see if any of them are worth their time. The top guys would be probably better than Sundell. And by the way, emphasis on probably, but there's no sense in going for a cheap, reasonable, decent option when you already have that decent guy in the building. All right, so there's really only four guys. So this is actually just going to be one video. We've got Tyler Linderbaum of the Baltimore Ravens. He is the crown jewel of the center position in free agency this year. He is one of the top free agents. Been putting together a very good start to his career in Baltimore. This is a guy who I and many others thought was generational for the center position in the draft 5 years ago. As it has turned out, he has been very good. I don't know if he's quite lived up to the hype, but he's one of the best centers in the league. You take a look at his Pro Football Focus grades, they've always been pretty strong. You take a look at his pass blocking numbers, they're good, although there are a couple of warning signs here that you should take note of. He does allow pressure on a relatively high percentage of his pass blocking snaps. The thing there is that he's blocking for Lamar Jackson most of the time, who is difficult to block for. He's not, he doesn't get sacked a ton necessarily, but he does get pressured more than the average quarterback because of the way that he plays. So you do have to be a little bit cautious trusting those numbers. He's also been flagged a decent number of times in his career, but he has played at least 1,000 snaps every year of his career. He's like I said, he's got good grades, got good numbers. He is one of the better centers in the league for sure. And if you really want to go all out at the center position, this is probably the guy you want to target. Now, Spotrac estimates his market value at 4 years, 70.9 million. That comes out to 17.7 million per year, which would be the highest paid center in football. The issue is, according to reports, the Ravens have already offered him a contract that is probably bigger than this, and Linderbaum has not signed. Either he really doesn't want to go back to Baltimore, maybe he's tired of playing in Baltimore, maybe he's seen the writing on the wall that they're going through a little bit of a rebuild with a new coach, and he doesn't want to commit himself to a team that is a ways away from getting back to Super Bowl contention. Or maybe he actually wants and believes he can get more money in open free agency. And if he thinks he can get more than 20 million, it's really tough to justify. I don't know if Linderbaum is worth more than 20 million. He's probably worth the 17.7. He probably is. But if you start having to push up to like 22 or 23 million per year and you're just completely wrecking the center market, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not closed off to it, but I also think that this team would be unlikely to chase him into that price range. But definitely the best option. All right. The remaining top level centers are, in my book, significantly less appealing for assorted reasons. You've got guys like Connor McGovern. Connor McGovern, good center, good player. Been with the Bills these last 3 years. Been a good, reliable player for them. Graded well last year. Graded well, I believe, the last 2 years for Buffalo. And the years where he wasn't graded so well, you can see that he was mostly playing left guard. So he's a center. He's meant to play center. He's found his home there, has allowed 0 sacks the last 2 years, and gets a reasonable number of penalties, I think, for a good veteran center. Played a lot the last several years. He is a good center. I think he's a noticeable improvement over Jalen Sundell, but you have to ask yourself, how much is he an improvement? Like, this guy, if you trust PFF, has been graded at about a 70 over the last 2 years. Obviously, that's good. It's better than what we have, but is it way better than what we have? And keep in mind that this guy's already 28, so he's in his prime and has been in his prime for the last year plus. So we have a pretty good understanding of what he can do at his peak. With Linderbaum, who is only, what, 20, not even 26, it feels like there's another level he could take his game to in his prime. Connor McGovern is in his prime. This is what he is, a very good center that may not be great. And according to Spotrac, you're going to have to pay him like he's great. They have 3 years, 48.8 million. So that's a little bit less than they have Linderbaum, but not that much. And maybe Linderbaum wrecks the market and then McGovern ends up being a big discount compared to Linderbaum. But I got to ask, is this where you want to be making your investment when you have Jalen Sundell at such a cheap price? I think he's like, is he even $1 million cap hit this year? And then you've got McGovern, who is an upgrade, but not a huge upgrade. And also, you run the risk of a player that is going to get old pretty quickly here. He's going to be on the wrong side of 30 in 2 years. Is that the investment you want to be making when you've just proven you can get by with what you have quite well? The Seahawks had a good offensive line last year with Sundell, and Sundell will probably get a little bit better. And I would love to upgrade from him if possible, but do I want to pay nearly $50 million over 3 years to a player to upgrade modestly? That's a little bit tough. I might do it, but you see how it gets dicey. Okay, so Connor McGovern, reasonable option, interesting thought, not my favorite, but at the same time, as you're about to see, we're running out of options if this is where you want to improve the team. So let's keep going. Cade Mays of the Carolina Panthers is kind of the next guy up here. He isn't super well known. You can see Pro Football Focus isn't a huge fan, but he does have a relatively positive reputation. He's been starting on the Panthers for the last few years, but as you can see, he's never actually had a full season. His whole career, he's been missing significant chunks of games. Hasn't allowed any sacks over the last 2 years, so that's nice. His pressure numbers are actually really good. But at the same time, part of the reason why that is because he's never played a full season. He is about to turn 27, so in theory, you're going to get his best seasons. But at the same time, there is definitely an uncomfortable gamble here when you're talking about a guy who hasn't even played 800 snaps in a season yet. And that is going to drag his numbers down significantly And you don't want to fall for that too much. Although the last 2 years, I do think that even with that, he's been quite good at not allowing pressure. So, Caden Mays, do you want to pay this price to find out? 3 years, 36.8 million. That's 12.3 million per year. That's a lot for a guy who I think is a little bit better than Jalen Sundell, but especially with the scheme fit element. Remember, Jalen Sundell is a very good scheme fit for this offense. Cade Mays may not be. He's a much bigger player than Sundell. Sundell has that history working with Gray's Abel that is so useful right now. So, do you want to make Cade Mays, who has never even played a full season and hasn't necessarily been stellar even when he's been out there and isn't a great scheme fit, top 5 center money, because that's about what this would be? I don't know. To me, this is where you get to the point where it's like, okay, centers are starting to get overpaid. A decent center, if he's actually going to pull 12.3 million per year, then I think the market's just kind of become a little bit wrecked, because I don't view Caden Mays as being worthy of top 5 money. I think he's a good starting center who has stuff to prove still. But if Spotrac is right, that's what it costs. And to me, the center position is not valuable enough to give top dollar to a guy who's just a little above average at best. And the final guy for this video is going to be Ethan Pocic of the Cleveland Browns. We're familiar with this guy. We know this guy. He's been a Seahawk before. He was a Seahawk for several years. He was actually a decent player for us for a little bit there. But we let him go to Cleveland, and he ended up having his best seasons in Cleveland. But as you can see, his best seasons are probably behind him. He is starting to miss some games. He is starting to miss some time. You can see the last 2 years, his PFF grade has dropped significantly from his peak. His peak years, he was one of the best centers in the league. Now, not so much. And also, he's in that Cleveland offensive line where he's surrounded with some really good players. Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. There have been some really good teammates that he's had to work with there that he would not necessarily have here. Although it would be a lot better here than it was when he was here previously. I don't think we have anything on the level of the prime Joel Bitonio Wyatt Teller combo. And also there's a question of scheme fit in a zone scheme a little bit, I think. Especially at his age, right? He's already 30, going to be 31 before the season starts. May not be able to hang in that zone scheme. And he's also missed a little bit of time in some recent seasons. Not a ton, but it is a little bit of a concern. But this is, if you want to try to find an upgrade over Sundell and you get past the first few guys, this is about the only thing that you can do. Now, is he actually an upgrade over Sundell at this point? I'm not even so sure. Again, the age looms large. The injuries loom large. The fact that PFF has knocked him the last 2 years looms large. Spotrac thinks he's going to get top 10 center money, 3 years, 31.8. That's 10.6 per. That's a lot of money for what may not even really be an upgrade. I shy away from this one. And the fact that we've already gotten to a guy like 31-year-old Ethan Pocic, and we're talking about this kind of money, tells you that we're done, right? Like, there are other centers available in free agency, but I don't think there's much reason to believe they would be better than Sundell at all. In fact, I think a lot of them would probably be worse. Like James Daniels, who's barely played football the last couple years, Sean Ryan, the Packers guy, who's just okay, Luke Fortner, and then you've got some guys that are just about as cheap as Sundell. Just stick with Sundell if you get down to this point. But those are your 4 guys. And look, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to try to upgrade, but I don't think there's much in the way of upgrade you can find in this group. It's really the first 2 guys. The next 2 guys, you're just crossing your fingers. And I don't know if that's the play. All right. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if any of this appeals to you. This is going to be the only center video because these are the only centers I think are worth talking about. I'm going to stream in a few hours, and then we're going to talk a little bit about combine stuff later today. So keep tuned for that. Today is the first day of on-field work. Today's the first day we'll get to see the Underwear Olympics. Check it out. Tune in. See you guys soon. Go Hawks.